So let's move on to Cincinnati, the hometown Cincinnati Bengals. How was their offseason?
I think their offseason was phenomenal. I mean, they're just on a stretch right now of just really, really good free agencies and draft classes. It's kind of remarkable to see, for a team that obviously was not always great in these areas, consistently, I think hitting a lot of doubles. I think that this offseason is about hitting a lot of doubles, maybe not a home run type of offseason, but home runs are with top five picks that they no longer have. So, for me, like getting Orlando Brown for the deal they did, 4 years, $64 million, is just such a remarkable discount for the player he is. I know he's not an elite left tackle, but he's not $10 million worse than the top of the market, which is now kind of the case. And then the draft, too. Like, I don't really know why Myles Murphy fell as far as he did. He does need to develop more moves, doesn't have an inside move, doesn't have a lot of great hand technique, kind of just a good athlete. But I think a steal at 28, and then Jordan Battle in the third round at safety as well. They addressed needs. They added depth, which I think is important. Besides kind of tackle, I think they're deep pretty much everywhere. And they have a lot of good football players on this team.
Yeah, and obviously they lost some players in free agency as well. But I think by and large, they were players that they expected or had planned to lose along the way. Von Bell, probably the one that wasn't, I think, in that category that they would have liked to retain and didn't. But Jesse Bates was always gone, right? The way that they approached that, he was never going to stay long term. He was always going to play out the end of that guaranteed deal and then bounce. So to parlay that into Orlando Brown Jr., Cody Ford quietly could end up being a nice addition to them. Like, this is about the depth along that offensive line. Like, Cincinnati they've overhauled the line. The starting five is way better than it was a couple of years ago. The depth is still a problem, and we saw that last year. Whenever they have to go into the bench, it's back to the same catastrophic players that were starting for them previously and couldn't get it done. Now, if you can upgrade those guys, you're continuing to move in the right direction. And then Irv Smith Jr., the tight end from Minnesota, is another one of those perfect reclamation project gambles that I love. Every single year you would hear, preseason training camp buzz about how Irv Smith was going to take off and be this dominant force, and then injury struck again. It never happened. But if they keep him healthy for a season, then Irv Smith can absolutely be an impact player in this offense that, is obviously in a great situation right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, even the guys you touched on, DJ Turner, too, in the second round, like, maybe he doesn't start. Maybe you have Cam Taylor-Britt and Chidobe Awuzie, a healthy version back, but you do not have these massive drop-offs. Again, maybe right tackle scares me a little bit because I don't think Lyle Collins is going to be healthy for the first, half of the season. Right. It kind of came out recently that he had a pretty gnarly knee injury that kind of went under the radar. He's obviously had a bunch of injuries, not the youngest player in the world anymore. But yeah, like, if they have an injury to a bunch of spots, they should be okay, which is obviously massive when you're trying to play now a 17-game schedule at a very high level, win a gauntlet of a division in the AFC North. I think they set themselves up very well also to keep the starters fresh, too. It's not just having good depth, but I think you saw Trey Hendrickson last year kind of, in the Kansas City game in particular, couldn't be the version of him that we've seen. Myles Murphy, to me, can play early downs against the run pretty much right away in the NFL. I think he has that strength on the edge. Keep Trey Hendrickson fresh and let him kind of tee off against quarterbacks. Like, stuff like that is emblematic of their entire offseason across the roster.
Yeah, they've done a really great job future-proofing this roster in the way a few of the really good teams in the NFL have done in recent seasons. Like DJ Turner, I mean, that was like Dax Hill a season ago where he wasn't necessarily going to start, but he's going to come in year two and be that guy. The wide receiver additions, Charlie Jones, Andre Yosivas, these are guys that can be contributors, not necessarily this year, but the following year. Myles Murphy, as you say, can get playing time right away, but also is probably a guy that ultimately replaces Hendrickson down the line if he can develop. So love the moves that Cincinnati have made. Also, they quietly, an underrated, not even a move, in fact, the exact opposite, the steadfast refusal to even blink when Jonah Williams was like, oh, you've given my left tackle spot away? Well, I want to trade. And they just went, that's sweet. Talk to you later. And just did nothing, right? And now Jonah Williams is presumably going to be the right tackle because he hasn't forced a trade. I don't think he's going to be sitting out because the guy needs to play this year to fix the season that he had previously where he gave up 13 sacks and prove that he deserves, a decent amount of money in his next contract. So simply not blinking when a guy came to them and said, I want out. Like, you've given away my starting spot, potentially gives them the right tackle they need this year.
Some of you earn again by being a competitive team, to where if they were 5-11, 5-12 last year, whatever, we'd be like, yeah, like get him out of there. Now it's like, Jonah, you played right tackle in college. The markets are the main reason players do it, including their left tackle Orlando Brown, even though it did not work at all, is for the money. But Jawan Taylor just got $20 million a year. Lane Johnson got over $20 million a year. Like, the markets are very, very close. I think even he might just realize, like, why would I force my way to go learn a new system just so I can play left tackle in a contract year, as opposed to, all right, switch back to a position I've played before on a contending team, win 14 games, whatever, make a playoff run, whatever, and I'll still cash out and I could go back to left tackle. I agree with you, but I do think you earned that by, like, if he complains, this locker room's gonna be like, yo, Jonah, like, we're trying to win a title here. We're not really concerned with, you know, these little, again, every player has a right to do whatever they want contractually. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, you earn the ability, like you said, to just sit tight and say, yeah, we're good with it.
Yeah, and I think that ends up being a kind of sneaky, under the radar, again, not even a move, just a smart approach to the offseason that they've had. So overall, this is one of the better off seasons in the NFL, I think. And we gave them A for the draft, A- for their approach to free agency. Pretty much nailed it.